All right, we're looking at 6:46 here on the Morning Brew, and we've got on the line with us right now attorney at law Martin George, who is a former member of the Police Service Commission and who would have been tasked with making decisions as to who would be selected for the upper echelons of the police service. Just a similar exercise happening now with regard to the Deputy Commissioner of Police, 3 posts to be filled. Good morning to you, Martin George, and thank you for joining us on the show this morning. Hi, Martin George, can you hear me?
Hi, good morning to you, yes. Jessamy, and good venue, Jessamy.
All right, wonderful. Martin George, the selecting of a Deputy Commissioner of Police, that is not an easy task. The Commissioner having 3 persons to support his policy implementation and overall management of the police service in that particular post of DCP. Let's look at the recruitment process and what's involved. What are the recruiters looking for when they're selecting a Deputy Commissioner of Police?
Well, the thing is, Jessamy, I mean, you first of all guide yourself by the legislation, and then once they meet those basic requirements, you then would look for the characteristics of the individual whom you think would best be suited to give that level of support at a managerial level. You're looking for things like, persons who would be able to give strategic direction to the service, persons who would have that breadth of vision, persons who would command the respect of the officers in the lower ranks, persons who would also be able to interface properly with the public and with the various, networks in society that are required for your job. And you'd also be looking for persons who would be able to work along with your commissioner, because at the end of the day, between themselves and the commissioner, they form the 4 top positions of the police service hierarchy. So you're looking for those kinds of characteristics, and you're also looking for someone who could possibly or potentially be a future commissioner of police.
Is it important that whoever the DCPs become, whoever becomes the DCPs, that they have an understanding of what it's like to be on the ground as well, doing those kinds of duties? That I'm thinking that if they don't have a sense of what it's like to be out there in the crime fighting, as it were, that they may make policy decisions that could negatively impact those officers who are lower down in the ranks and make things a little more difficult for them.
Well, the thing is, Jessamy, because you have 3 DCPs, you have different areas and different portfolios. So therefore, not everyone would be the operational person. Certainly, whoever is in charge of your crime fighting and operations, yes, it would be necessary for them to have that experience being on the ground, so to speak. But the point is, if you're looking at, someone who is more in the area of like human resources or finance, that kind of thing, then you don't necessarily have to have that experience out there on the street. But what you really need is the character and quality of the individual, because this is someone who would be entrusted with a tremendous sense of responsibility. They are occupying the 2nd highest level within the police service, and you certainly want to be someone of impeccable character. And that is one of the most important criteria that you'd be looking for.
The persons who are offering themselves up for these posts, they also, as you say, they've got to have impeccable character. They need to be prepared to face a level of scrutiny that is unprecedented into their, not just professional, but also their personal lives as well, aren't they, Martin George?
Of course. And the point is, you would recall the last round of this exercise where, I was actually a member of the Police Service Commission at that point, and there were some questions raised in relation to one of the candidates that would have been the candidate, Mr. Dulal Chan. And you'd recall that when his name came up in the Parliament, the government of the day, for whatever reason, decided not to move forward with him, So the point is there must be that level of rigorous interrogation of the background, the circumstances. You must make sure that this is someone who can withstand scrutiny, because you don't want to make an important appointment such as this, and then you have skeletons coming tumbling out of the person's closet at a later stage, and then the Police Service Commission would end up basically with egg on their faces for having made that selection in the first place. You'd recall, out of the last round of the selection process, there was a whole parliamentary committee that was convened to look into the way the process was done, the way the process was managed, and you recall that there were hearings before this Parliament Special Committee. So the point is, you want to get it right and get it right first time, so that way you don't end up in an imbroglio or a debacle that you later then have to try cleaning up the mess.
Let's look now at the procedure. We've had the short list of names, 3 names, of course, standing out above all others. Mark Hernandez. We also have DCP McDonald Jacob, acting DCP yes. McDonald Jacob, and we also have Superintendent Andre Norton. Those names have been forwarded to Parliament by the Office of the President for approval. What happens next?
Right, so the point is, at the parliamentary stage, this is where you have basically, all right, what we had previously, if you recall, in these circumstances, you had what was essentially a one-man prime ministerial veto. The law has since changed, and it has now been modified to be subject to the approval of Parliament. But the point is, if it is that you have one side in Parliament with the majority and they do not approve, then basically it has really just changed from a prime ministerial veto to what can end up being a parliamentary veto. So this is where the questions will be asked, persons will be able to scrutinize the CV and the background and the history and antecedents of the candidates during this parliamentary debate, and one way or another, a decision can be taken as to whether they proceed or not with the candidate. But if it is that the party that has the majority in the parliament decides that they are not going with a candidate, that's the end of the matter. It doesn't get passed at all.
Okay, so that means that the Police Service Commission will have to go back to the drawing board and pull a fresh candidate?
It is back to the drawing board, that's correct. But the point is, if it is that you have a short list of persons that you have already created, that short list can still be valid and alive. So you can just choose from that short list, as opposed to going back and restarting the entire process. But that short list is only valid for a year. So once a year expires, then you will have to go back and restart the process all over again.
Let's assume that all things go well and that all these names are approved by the Parliament. What happens next?
Okay, so then once you have that approval, then basically it's up to the government, the Ministry of National Security. They will then move forward with the process, and then the names are sent to the Police Service Commission for the official appointment to office. Now, I want you to understand something. While the Police Service Commission makes the appointments to the office, the Police Service Commission is not the employer of these officers, even the Commissioner of Police. So in the circumstances, say for instance, the current commissioner who did not come up through the ranks of the police service, the Ministry of National Security, they negotiated a contract with him in terms of his contract of employment. And the Police Service Commission would simply do the official appointment to the office. So similarly, with these offices of Deputy Commissioner of Police, the Police Service Commissioner will do the appointments, but the employer remains the Ministry of National Security.
All right, and we have, let's say that the process is complete, the DCPs have been installed in office. then what happens next? They begin work in their respective areas of specialty?
Right, they begin work in their respective areas of specialty, and of course, then the Police Service Commission now has the role for the monitoring and evaluation and assessment of their performance going forward, because the Police Service Commission has authority over those 4 offices, the Office of Commissioner and the 3 Deputy Commissioners. So those are the ones that they carry out their functions in relation to, in terms of their monitoring evaluation exercises.
Martin George, we see that this process is taking place at a time when the police service is under a great deal of scrutiny in light of the different kinds of crimes that we're seeing an upsurge in, gang-related crimes, domestic violence and gender-based crimes, human trafficking as well. The police service certainly having a rough time of it, and definitely needing to recruit people who'll be able to manage what's happening now, because they literally need to be thinking on their feet all the time, yes?
Well, apart from that, Jessime, we must recognize and understand that the police service is a creature that would always be under scrutiny in any society because of the role that it plays, because it's really a balancing act, because they are really supposed to be the guardians of the public, but yet still they are supposed to be the vanguard against any marauding elements in the public who would seek to threaten the safety and security of the nation or the society as a whole. So there's always that balancing act. So it's always, fraught with challenges, but notwithstanding that, you always want to ensure that the persons you choose and the persons you appoint to these offices are up to that challenge and they are able to make a difference. And when I say make a difference, not just by words, but really by your actions and your effectiveness in terms of showing the results in the process.
Just very quickly, Martin George, as we wrap, just as a matter of interest, persons who do not succeed in this process, is it a death knell for their career in the police service? Persons who, all sorts of scandal are revealed about them. Is this the end of them, as it were, in the police service?
Not necessarily, Jessime, not at all, because, you still have to observe due process, because even if questions are raised and issues are, unearthed in relation to someone, you still must always allow them due process. Remember, we always rely upon the presumption of innocence. That's part of our law, that's part of our constitution, that's part of our procedure here in Trinidad and Tobago. So regardless of what may be an allegation against someone, or a suggestion or a hint against someone, you must always still offer them due process, and it's only through that process of either interrogation or an investigation that a conclusion can be made. So notwithstanding the fact that someone may not be successful because something may be revealed, that is not the end of the world for them, because even sometimes you may have situations where persons are accused of things and they are later proven to be not guilty of them.
Martin George, thank you for your time this morning and for your expertise as a former commissioner on the Police Service Commission. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It's indeed a pleasure, Jessime, and good morning to you, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
News is next here, and on the other side, more newsmaking on the Morning Brew.